And this gentleman
me
came into a video I did about institutional investors and residential home buying and accused me basically of lying to my audience.
So I did a video recently on the residential housing market, and somebody in the comments told me that this particular creator had debunked the idea that investors are driving up housing costs. Tagged me in one of these videos of him just talking. No citations, no statistics, no sources. In my ever so humble opinion, no legitimacy. Then the commenter tagged me in another video where he did provide some statistics. They were not the most recent statistics. They had a lower value to double down on his claim that private investment in residential home ownership is a negligible variable not affecting housing supply or driving up housing and rent prices. That is intentionally misleading, and I will stand by that. Now, there's plenty of genuine conversations to be had about all the nuances that are affecting the housing market beyond this one particular topic. But that's not what you're doing here. You appear from the 3 videos of yours now that I've watched to be going out and looking for data to support an argument you've made, rather than making an argument based on the available data. That I find misleading, but I am happy to walk through it.
He claimed in one video institutional investors own 25% of single-family homes. This is false.
I did make this claim, and it may be false. According to an excerpt from Bill Track 50 citing Pew here, that's the number. It's also pretty widely reported that roughly a quarter of single-family homes were purchased by investment firms last year. Another article from my home state states that certain metro communities have 25% investor ownership in those communities. When it was pointed out to me in the comments that my 25% ownership statistic may be incorrect, I went back and tried to cross-reference that original statistic from Bill Track 50 and could not find the original Pew source that they cited. I still not have found a reliable number for what that actual stat is, but realized that I personally conflated a few of these other statistics in my initial cross-reference of that stat. I made a correction in the comments on that video to that effect.
Is expressing confusion. A category of all residential homes is larger than that of single-family.
Here he's referring to one of his comment responses to my comment, defending the lower statistic he used about the number of investor-purchased homes last year, saying that he was talking about all residential housing units, not just single-family homes. Now, to suggest that investors bought only 13% of all residential housing, but 25% of single-family homes seems a little sus to me. It seems unlikely to me that when you move out of the realm of single-family homes into duplexes, quadplexes, apartments, and so on, investor ownership and purchases would go down, not up. But I don't know, maybe condos or something really skews the stat. Either way, it again seems intentionally misleading if it is true at all, because when we're talking about affordability in the housing market, we're generally talking about people's ability to purchase single-family homes.
I kind of responded to him. Institutional investors only account for 5% of single-family home owners, and he says, well, there's 90% of single-family homes. That's 4.5 million homes. Therefore, it's a huge problem, and you're a liar. This is kind of the key to show that he doesn't really understand what he's talking about. It seems obvious to me, but then I didn't specify it in my comment, so my mistake. But is that when we're talking about institutional ownership of single-family homes, our relevant denominator is not the entire population of single-family homes. Institutional investors buy them for a purpose, and the purpose is the rental market. And so the denominator here is a single-family rental market.
Here you made a statement. You said investors own 5% of housing in the U.S., and that equates to 700,000 homes. So there's 80 to 90 million single-family homes in the U.S. 5% would have been around 4.5 million. You made the statement. I just did the math. Now here you clarify that it's single-family homes on the rental market. Cool. Doesn't matter. And before I go further, for everybody who is watching, please go back and watch this video, watch the rest of his videos, take his information from him, not from me. In fact, absolutely never take anything I say for granted. I am one person. I am far from infallible. I research, write, record, and edit all of the videos I do by myself. And as hard as I try to be as researched and accurate as possible, I make errors. I do my best to acknowledge and correct those when I'm made aware of them. But just as I do my best to cross-reference all of the information that I put out, you should cross-reference any information you get from me as well. All right, now moving on. This creator seems relatively educated and well-researched from what I can tell. And while I'm sure when he articulates his statistics accurately, the majority of his statistics are accurate, my statement that they are misleading, and I never said lied, I said misleading, still stands. Because the whole purpose of the argument he's making and the statistics he's using to support that argument is that investor or institutional ownership of residential and specifically single-family housing is an inconsequential problem in our housing market. He is citing these numbers as if they are negligible, unthinkable, and insinuating that as a result, we have no need to worry about curbing corporate ownership of single-family homes because it will not impact the housing market, which is bullshit. Now, there is absolutely a lot of nuance in the housing market that goes well beyond institutional investors. And this is all nuance I definitely left out of my most recent video on this topic, primarily because the video's topic was specifically about private landlords versus corporate landlords and not the housing market as a whole. But I have talked about this nuance in the past, and I will mention it here. The Great Recession purged a ton of contractors from the market. The crash in housing prices halted new construction, and the fact that there wasn't very many trades jobs to go into resulted in a huge gap of skilled labor in the trades. As a result, fewer houses have been built in the 2010s than at like any point since, I think, the 60s. That has major implications on housing supplies. That is a problem. We have expansive zoning laws that prohibit multifamily housing in many places that need it. Then you've got COVID-related supply chain issues, mixed in with inflation, greedflation, yada yada, that has drastically driven up the price of building materials and has also slowed new construction. Interest rates that were held really low through a strong economy also didn't help supply, but then we start tying back into investor ownership again. And now, to highlight the importance of focusing on these particular issues, you can use the statistics that this other creator is using to put them into perspective, but you cannot use it to downplay the role of corporate ownership in the residential housing market as it stands today, which is what you're doing when you say stuff like, oh, only 700,000 single-family homes are investor-owned rental properties, but there are 5 million single-family homes that are semi-vacant short-term rentals. Speaking of home vacancy, that's something you also try to downplay in another video, saying that like when you move and the people who buy your home don't move into it for a month, your house is listed as vacant. And that's not even how home vacancy is measured. The U.S. Census Bureau classifies a home as vacant if no one is living there at the time of the interview unless the occupants are temporarily absent. And the 15 million number of vacant homes cited in that video comes from the Census Bureau statistics. 32% of those vacant homes are considered vacation homes, 16% are rentals, and with the current housing shortage we have for that many rentals to be sitting vacant, there's a solid argument to be made that some institutional owners are keeping rent prohibitively high so they remain vacant to keep supply down and keep prices up. But the overwhelming majority of vacant houses, 37%, is listed as other. And a housing unit is listed as other, according to the Census Bureau, when it doesn't fit into any other year-round vacant category. Are 5 million short-term rentals considered other vacant? I don't know. But that would be 33% of 15 million vacant homes. So arguing that these home vacancy numbers isn't a real problem and institutional ownerships isn't a huge part of it is ridiculous. Furthermore, looking at the nationwide statistic of institutional owned homes and trying to act like that's negligible compared to the total number of homes in America is disingenuous as well. Because to truly gauge impact, you need to look at the types of homes that investors buy and where they buy them. Investors buy the most affordable houses. You know, the same ones that working class people buy that they can't afford anymore. According to CoreLogic, investors in 2022 bought a third of houses in the bottom third price bracket. That means that the available supply of houses for first-time home buyers and low-income families is reduced to 66% of what it would have been without those investors. Investors are also focusing on buying houses in places with the most population growth. So while they may only own a small percentage of total residential housing in the United States, they can own huge percentages of housing in the places that people actually live. Start looking at major metropolitan areas and growing cities around the country where people are trying to buy houses, and the homes being purchased by investors is drastically higher than the national averages. And here's the thing is, again, you keep talking about how negligible these institutional investment numbers are. Oh, they only have 5% of single-family homes on the rental market. But that's a snapshot in a trend. A trend where investors currently control more than they did previously and are working on controlling more in the future, in a market that currently doesn't have enough available inventory. A trend that, according to MetLife Investment Management, may result in institutional investors controlling up to 40% of the single-family home rental market by 2030. So I'm curious, where is it along that potential 35% spike in the next 6 years that we should be concerned about institutional investors, since now isn't the time? And there's more statistics, but I think I've proven my point as to why I said what you were doing was being misleading. Not lying, misleading. Because you've clearly done enough research on this issue to know that investor ownership and housing vacancies are a serious problem in our current housing market, while you were searching for statistics to try to validate your argument that they're not. And instead of conceding the fact that this is a major problem that needs to be addressed right now, you just double down on your argument repeatedly with selective statistics that support it. That is the definition of misleading. So once again, I will reiterate that my accusation stands.